Is this the best Fender Princeton yet? Let's find out. Hi, Sam from Guitar Village here, and today we're going to be doing a shootout between the traditional 65 Princeton Reverb reissue and the brand new custom 64 Handwired. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between each of these amps, and we're going to do some sound comparisons too. Let's get started. Since 1947, the Princeton amp has been part of the Fender lineup, and while it's gone through some cosmetic and some circuit changes over that time, I think the most iconic looking one is the 1965 blackface version. So they've been doing the 65 reissue for some time now, but let's see what this new 64 custom hand-wired amp has under the hood. With an £800 difference in price, what are you getting with this new model? Well, as I'm sure you've guessed by now, this one is hand-wired, whereas the original 65 reissue is a PCB board. It's also slightly lighter, only £2, but a little bit lighter. On top of that, Fender have fitted it with their blue tone capacitors, which apparently sound amazing, and we're going to find that out in a second. They've also given it a solid pine cabinet, whereas the original had a birch plywood cabinet. And instead of the standard P10C ceramic speaker you get in the 65 reissue, the 64 features a P10R Alnico speaker from Jensen. So first up, let's play around with the amp and see what sounds it's got on board then. I'm going to set the amp on to about 3. Okay, so instantly we've got some good volume coming out. And let's add some reverb as well, set that to 3. So the controls are at 5 on both the treble and bass, and I haven't got the tremolo turned on. Nice classic Fender, sparkly clean sound. Let's turn this thing up a bit more and see when the gain starts to set in. So I'm just going to nudge it up to full. Still a bit spanky, but you can hear it's just on the edge of breaking up. Let's try it. I think 4.5 might do it. Yeah, it's starting to break up now, so it's sounding really good. So this is probably about as loud as the amp is going to go. Let's try it at 7 and see what that does. Really starting to break up now. That thing sounds great. Right, let's turn it back down for a clean sound again, and let's get some more reverb on the go. So the reverb was set at 3. Let's try it at 7, see how it sounds. That is a wet sound right there. Let's try it all the way up at 10. Okay, so that is sounding really good. Next up, let's have a play around with the tremolo on here. So that is with the intensity set to 5, but the speed at 1. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's turn the intensity all the way up, see how far this thing can go. Okay, so that's pretty good. It's not quite as full on as some of the tweed tremolos that they've done in the past. Let's set the speed to 5 this time. Now, let's try that with the speed all the way up to 10. Cool, it's a nice sounding tremolo on there. So that's a good amp. It's got a really strong sound to it, and I think this will be ideal for kind of Not really loud environments, but it's certainly loud in this room. You can feel things shaking in here. So it would be good if you're going to do like a small club gig, pub gig, that kind of thing. Or if you're going to be recording somewhere, you can turn it up just a little bit more. Now, let's try out the 65 for comparison. Now we're going to take a look at the 65 reissue. So this is the PCB circuit. And I've got the dial set to where I started off with the hand-wired. So the reverb's at 3 and the volume's at 3 with the treble and bass at 5 and tremolo turned off. Instantly, it's a lot quieter. So, I mean, that could be a good thing if you need to practice quietly at home. Let's turn it up a bit though and see how it responds. So the last one broke up around 4.5 or so. Okay, so this is definitely a lot cleaner to start with. Let's see where the breaking point is. Let's try it at 5.5. Okay, we're kind of there. There's definitely a bit of a jump in volume where there wasn't on the reissue. Now let's just get this back to clean again. Now we tested the reverb at 7 last time, so we went from 3 to 7. Let's see how it differs. Okay, so there's definitely a lot of reverb on board. I don't think it sounds quite as nice maybe as you got from the other one. Let's try it all the way up to 10. Yeah, healthy amount of reverb on there. Now let's test the tremolo. So we started off with the intensity at 5 and the speed at 1, so we're doing the same on this. Okay, so there's not a lot there. Let's try it at 10. Okay, it's kicked in now. Let's try turning the speed up. Let's go to 5. Okay, it's still there. I don't think this definitely doesn't have the same amount of intensity as the other one. Okay, so yeah, it's not bad. It's definitely not as full on as the other one. I think the 65 has a really, really strong reverb and tremolo circuit on there as well. Now, let's do a direct sound comparison and see how they favour. So there was our Fender Princeton shootout. I'll say the first thing that I noticed was the difference in the way the volumes work. So when I had the volume at 3 on both, I noticed that the hand-wired was much louder, it had a much stronger sound, and the taper on the pot is much smoother, so it slowly goes up in volume when you adjust it. Whereas with the 65 reissue, it was much steeper. I think, there was this point where it was like quite loud. There was no kind of like gradual build up there. The other thing I noticed was how differently the reverbs reacted. They both have pretty much the same amount of reverb on board, but I think the way that the mix works with it is that on the 65, the guitar kind of drops down in volume, but the reverb kind of builds it up to keep it at the same volume. Whereas on the 64 hand-wired, the guitar tone stayed where it was, and you just get this really nice reverb added in as well. Another big difference was the intensity of the tremolo. I thought that the intensity, when I had the amps both set at 5, you could really hear the 64 hand-wired working, but the 65, the PCB board, it was very subtle and very quiet. I had to turn it up to 10 to really get it working. Now, in terms of purposes, I think the 65 is really ideal for someone who plays at home or does kind of low volume recordings or plays small gigs, whereas I think the 64 hand-wired is a bit louder and it's going to cut through the mix a lot better. For today's video, I was using this exquisite Fender Custom Shop 1960 Journeyman Relic Strat in aged Olympic white. Both the Fender amps we used will be linked in the description below, along with this Strat as well, so if you want to find out any more about any of them, get down there and check it out. We really enjoyed making this video and we hope you enjoyed watching it. We'll be bringing out new videos every Friday at 4 p.m, so hit the subscribe button now to stay up to date with our latest content. And while you're there, give us a thumbs up too.